In April 1961, a CIA-backed invasion force landed on a beach in Cuba called the Bay of Pigs. The operation collapsed within 3 days. Publicly, the young President Kennedy went on television and accepted sole responsibility for the disaster. Privately, Kennedy realized the agency had tried to bluff him into a full-scale war he never wanted. He responded by forcing out the man who had turned the CIA into a global power, Allen Dulles. Dulles returned to his private home in Georgetown, but his influence didn't end at the gate. Every morning, a steady stream of active CIA officers and high-level strategists continued to arrive at his door. They gathered in his study to discuss field reports and sensitive intelligence. Dulles was a civilian without an official government position, yet the agency's top tier continued to treat him as their primary commander. Dulles had created a network of power that was effectively autonomous, a governing layer that existed outside the authority of the White House. This loyalty was forged decades earlier on Wall Street. As a partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, the nation's most powerful corporate law firm, Dulles spent his career managing the global interests of industrial titans and international bankers. When the New Deal introduced federal regulations to curb corporate greed, Dulles gathered his clients and told them, "Do not comply." He instructed the country's most powerful businessmen to resist the law until the political climate shifted back in their favor. This formed an invisible elite, a class of unelected officials who shuttle between Manhattan boardrooms and Washington command posts. They forge a national consensus that is rarely subject to the results of a public election. During World War II, Dulles ran the American intelligence outpost in Switzerland. While theoretically working to defeat the Axis, he was often pursuing a separate diplomatic agenda. Despite President Roosevelt's policy of unconditional surrender, Dulles opened secret back channels with high-ranking SS commanders. He viewed these men as valuable allies for a future conflict with the Soviet Union, prioritizing their intelligence networks over their defeat. After the war, he shielded many of these Nazi officers from prosecution, facilitating their escape through secret rat lines. He traded their freedom for their expertise in espionage and counterinsurgency. As the CIA's director, Dulles turned the agency into a tool for toppling sovereign governments. He built a system designed to execute foreign policy through covert wars and coups that never required a vote in Congress. Execution of these tasks fell to operatives like E. Howard Hunt, men who were highly trained and easily disavowed. They were the expendable men, used for operations the government could never officially acknowledge. When Kennedy began speaking about ending the Cold War and supporting national liberation movements, he was dismantling the logic of the system Dulles had spent his life building. The president was now in direct opposition to his own intelligence apparatus. In November 1963, this tension reached its breaking point. The assassination in Dallas occurred within a climate where the intelligence community already viewed the president as a threat to national security. The official narrative focused on Lee Harvey Oswald as an unstable, lone Marxist. However, Oswald's history shows a man whose every move, from his defection to Russia to his return to the U.S., was documented and facilitated by intelligence channels. Counterintelligence Chief James Angleton maintained a file on Oswald for years. In the spy game, such a man is often used as a dangle, a low-level asset positioned to lure in enemies, who can be discarded as a patsy when an operation concludes. Immediately after the shooting, Dulles lobbied President Johnson for a seat on the official investigative commission. He was so active in its proceedings that it essentially became his own inquiry. Dulles spent months steering the Warren Commission away from CIA files. He worked to ensure that any evidence of institutional involvement was minimized, focusing the world's attention entirely on the lone gunman theory. Dulles demonstrated that a professional class of unelected officials could outlast the leaders they were meant to serve. He created the historical reality of a government that operates in the shadows, independent of the public will.